The 1980s gave us some of the catchiest songs ever recorded. We sang along to them at parties, played them on repeat on our cassette players, and made them the soundtracks to our lives. The decade brought synthesizers, big hair, and anthems that filled stadiums. But underneath those infectious melodies and upbeat rhythms, many of these hits were born from experiences far darker than most of us ever realized. From obsession and war to suicide and stalking, the stories behind these beloved songs reveal a side of the 80s that the music videos never showed. Here are the disturbing true origins of top 10 hits from the 1980s. Number 10. Every Breath You Take by the Police. When the Police released this song in May 1983, it shot straight to number 1 and stayed there for 8 weeks. Couples slow danced to it at weddings. People called it the most romantic song of the decade. Radio stations played it constantly, but Sting had something very different in mind when he penned those haunting lyrics. The song came together during one of the darkest periods of Sting's life. He had just left his wife Frances Tomelty and started a relationship with actress Trudy Styler, who happened to be Frances's close friend and neighbor. The scandal consumed the British tabloids, and Sting needed to escape to Jamaica to get away from the media circus. He stayed at Goldeneye, the estate where Ian Fleming wrote the James Bond novels, a place that seemed fitting for what would become one of the most misunderstood songs in pop history. One night, he woke up with a line running through his head. He sat down at the piano in the middle of the night, and within half an hour, he had written the entire song. In a 1983 interview with New Musical Express, Sting called it a nasty little song, really rather evil, about jealousy and surveillance and ownership. Those weren't words most people associated with their favorite romantic ballad. The lyrics describe someone watching every breath, every move, every step of another person. When Sting sang about Big Brother, he wasn't thinking about love in any traditional sense. He was thinking about George Orwell's surveillance state, about control and obsession. The song captured his own dark thoughts during his marriage collapse. Thoughts he transformed into something that sounded sweet on the surface, but carried something much more sinister underneath. Even Sting seemed surprised by how people interpreted it. He watched couples use it for their first dance at weddings, heard it played at Valentine's Day dinners. The ambiguity became part of the song's power and its curse. It sounds like comfort, like devotion, like someone promising to always be there. But the words tell a different story entirely, one of possession rather than love. The song won 2 Grammys and became the biggest-selling single of 1983, topping charts around the world. But for Sting, it remained a reminder of a painful chapter, a moment when his dark thoughts about control and jealousy found their way into one of the most misunderstood songs in pop music history. The Police would break up within the year, their final tour marred by tensions between band members, but this song would outlive them all. Number 9. Born in the U.S.A. by Bruce Springsteen. On the surface, this 1984 anthem sounds like pure patriotism. The pounding drums, the shouted chorus, the image of Springsteen in front of an American flag on the album cover. Even President Ronald Reagan thought he heard something celebratory and referenced Springsteen during his 1984 campaign stops, trying to co-opt the song's popularity for his re-election bid. But Reagan and millions of others completely missed the point. Springsteen wrote this song as a protest, a bitter critique of how America treated its Vietnam veterans. It was an indictment, not a celebration. In 1980, Springsteen read Born on the 4th of July, a memoir by Ron Kovich, a Vietnam veteran who was paralyzed in the war. The book shook him to his core. Kovich's story of going from patriotic young Marine to anti-war activist after witnessing the horrors of combat and then being abandoned by his country stayed with Springsteen. Then, in 1981, he performed at a benefit concert for Vietnam veterans in Los Angeles and met with many of them afterward. Their stories stayed with him. Stories of men who came home to closed factories, unemployment, and indifference from the country they'd risked their lives for. Springsteen started writing a song called Vietnam. The lyrics told the story of a working-class kid from a dead-end town who gets in trouble and is given a choice: jail or the military. He goes to Vietnam, watches his brother die there, and comes home to find no jobs and no support. Nobody wants to hire a Vietnam vet. The VA can't help. When director Paul Schrader sent Springsteen a script for a movie titled Born in the U.S.A., Springsteen borrowed the title and changed his chorus. But the message remained the same. The man in the song is born in the U.S.A., but that birthright brought him nothing but hardship, exploitation, and abandonment.
Come back home to the refinery, how a man said.
The recording sessions changed everything. When they finally recorded it with the full E Street Band, they turned up the volume and added that massive snare drum sound that would become iconic. What had been a quiet, mournful folk song became a stadium anthem with fist-pumping energy. That transformation created the perfect misunderstanding. The anthemic chorus sounded celebratory, drowning out the angry verses that told the real story. People heard what they wanted to hear, singing along without listening to the words. But Springsteen never stopped calling it what it was: a protest song about the men who fought a war their country asked them to fight, then came home to nothing but broken promises and closed doors.
Born in the U.S.A, I was born.
Number 8. 99 Luftballons by Nena.
99 Luftballons, ihren Weg zum Horizont.
In 1983, a German band led by singer Gabriele Kerner released a catchy new wave song that became one of the most successful non-English language hits in American chart history. The song peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it one of the rare foreign language songs to break through to American audiences.
Mann für UFOs aus dem All, warum schickte ein General?
Most Americans who heard it had no idea what the German words meant. They just knew it was fun and energetic, perfect for dancing at clubs and parties. But for Germans living through the Cold War, every word carried the weight of a very real fear.
99 Düsenflieger, jeder war ein großer Krieger.
The song's guitarist, Carlo Carges, came up with the idea in June 1982. He was at a Rolling Stones concert in West Berlin, watching one of the biggest bands in the world perform in a divided city. During the show, the band released hundreds of balloons into the air as part of their stage show. Carges watched them float up and drift toward the horizon, moving in strange patterns.
99 Kriegsminister, Streichholz und Benzinkanister.
Then one balloon caught the wind and floated east, disappearing over the Berlin Wall that split the city in two. Carges started thinking about what would happen if a military radar picked up that balloon and mistook it for something hostile. In the tense atmosphere of Cold War Germany, with nuclear missiles pointed at each other across the Iron Curtain, even a simple misunderstanding could trigger World War III. He wrote lyrics telling that exact story. 99 balloons float innocently into the sky. Military radar spots them and mistakes them for UFOs. A General Orders fighter jet scrambled to investigate. The pilots find nothing but balloons, but they put on a massive show of force anyway to demonstrate their military might. Nations along the borders panic, thinking they're under attack. Defense ministers on both sides see an opportunity to grab power and encourage conflict. Within moments, the entire world spirals into nuclear war over a simple mistake.
99 Kriegsminister, Streichholz und Benzinkanister.
The song ends in a devastated wasteland. 99 years of war left no room for victors, Nana sings. The singer walks through ruins where cities once stood, finds one remaining balloon floating in the ash and lets it go.
99 Jahre Krieg ließen kein.
When the song was translated into English as 99 Red Balloons, it lost some of its specific Cold War context and changed some lyrics. But both versions carried the same haunting warning. In a world armed to the teeth and ready to react at any moment, something as innocent as balloons in the sky could trigger the end of everything.
99 Luftballons, ihren Weg zum Horizont.
Number 7. Jump by Van Halen. Van Halen released this song in January 1984, and it became their first and only #1 hit in America. The synthesizer riff, David Lee Roth's soaring vocals, and that anthemic chorus made it an instant classic and changed the band's sound forever. The message seemed clear and positive. Take a chance. Take a leap. Go after what you want in life. But the real story was much darker. David Lee Roth got the idea from a tragedy he witnessed while driving through Los Angeles, and it started as something much more sinister than what ended up on the album. Roth and his roadie Larry Hostler were cruising around the LA canyons one afternoon, trying to come up with lyrics for the new synthesizer riff that Eddie Van Halen had created. Eddie had been pushing the band to incorporate more keyboards into their sound, and this particular riff needed the right words to match its energy. Roth had seen a news report about a man threatening to jump from a high building in Los Angeles. The man stood on the ledge while police and crowds gathered below. As he and Hostler talked about the incident, Roth imagined the crowd that would gather in a situation like that. Roth, with his dark sense of humor that sometimes shocked even his bandmates, imagined someone in that crowd yelling the opposite of what you'd expect. While most people would shout encouragement to stay alive, Roth pictured someone callously shouting, "Go ahead and jump." And he imagined the suicidal man thinking to himself in that moment, "Yeah, might as well jump." It was a grim joke, born from a real tragedy playing out on the evening news. But Hostler, recognizing that Van Halen needed an uplifting single, suggested they flip it into something more positive. Instead of a song about suicide, it could be about taking risks, about jumping into life rather than jumping out of it, about taking that leap of faith when an opportunity presents itself. That's exactly what Van Halen did. They took Roth's dark inspiration and transformed it completely into an optimistic anthem about seizing opportunities. The finished song kept that phrase but changed its meaning entirely, from desperation to empowerment. The song spent 5 weeks at #1 and became one of the most recognizable rock songs of the entire decade. Very few people knew they were singing along to a song that started with David Lee Roth making a dark joke about suicide. Number 6, Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. Joy Division released this song as a single in June 1980. It reached number 13 on the UK charts and would become their most enduring legacy. But by the time it hit the stores, the man who wrote it was already gone, having taken his own life just weeks before its release. Ian Curtis had been fighting multiple battles when he wrote this song. His epilepsy diagnosis had come recently, and the medication wasn't controlling the seizures as well as doctors had hoped. His marriage to Deborah Woodruff was falling apart, strained by his infidelity and the demands of his growing fame. The pressures of touring were mounting, and he felt trapped between two different lives that couldn't coexist. The song's title struck many as a deliberate response to Captain and Tennille's "Love Will Keep Us Together," which had been a huge hit just a few years earlier. Where that song celebrated love as a binding force that could overcome any obstacle, Curtis saw love as something that tears people apart when the strain becomes too much to bear. The lyrics reflected his own crumbling marriage with painful honesty. He sang about resentment building between two people, about words that wound rather than heal, about the growing distance between two people who once loved each other. Every line carried the weight of someone watching his relationship die and feeling powerless to stop it or fix it. Curtis recorded the song in March 1980 at Strawberry Studios in Stockport. By May, just weeks before the single's release date, he hanged himself in his home on the eve of Joy Division's first American tour. He was 23 years old. The song took on a completely different meaning after his death. What had been a painful song about a relationship ending became something much heavier and more haunting. It became Curtis's final statement, a window into the darkness he was living through, a sign of his desperation that everyone had missed. Joy Division never performed again. The remaining members formed New Order and went on to great success, but they could never escape the shadow of that moment. Love Will Tear Us Apart became one of the most haunting songs in rock history because of what it represented. It was a cry for help that no one heard until it was too late. Number 5. The Living Years by Mike plus the Mechanics. Mike plus the Mechanics released this ballad in December 1988, and it quickly became one of the most emotional hits of the decade. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1989, and became an anthem for anyone who had ever lost a parent with words left unspoken. The song came from a conversation between band members during rehearsals. Mike Rutherford, the band's founder and longtime member of Genesis, was talking with songwriter B.A. Robertson and lead vocalist Paul Carrack. They discovered that several of them had recently lost their fathers. As they opened up about their grief, they realized they all shared the same painful regret. None of them had said the things they needed to say while their fathers were still alive. They had all let pride, stubbornness, or simple procrastination keep them from having the conversations that mattered most. Robertson and Rutherford wrote the lyrics together, drawing from their shared experiences. They captured that specific kind of pain that comes from losing someone when there are still unfinished conversations, still arguments that never got resolved, still love that never got properly expressed. The line about how it's too late when we die to admit we don't see eye to eye hit especially hard because it spoke to a universal truth that many people had experienced but few had put into words. The song wasn't about dramatic conflicts or terrible wrongs between fathers and sons. It was about normal family tension, the everyday kind where fathers and sons grow apart over the years, where pride prevents honest communication, where the years just keep passing and the distance keeps growing. Then suddenly one person is gone, and all those unsaid words stay unsaid forever. All those chances to bridge the gap disappear in an instant. The song struck a powerful chord with people going through the same experience or fearing they might someday face it. It became the song people played at funerals, the song that made them pick up the phone and call their parents before it was too late, the song that reminded a generation not to let stubbornness or pride keep them from the people they loved. Mike Rutherford later said the song was about his father, who died in 1987. He never got to tell his father certain things, never got to have certain conversations. The song became his way of processing that loss and warning others not to make the same mistake he had made. Number 4, Patience by Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses released this acoustic ballad in May 1989. It showed a completely different side of the band known for aggressive hard rock. The gentle guitar and tender vocals suggested something romantic and sweet. The song came from Axl Rose's tumultuous relationship with model Erin Everly. They met in 1986, and their relationship was immediately intense and unstable. They broke up and got back together multiple times. Rose wrote Patience during one of their apart phases. The lyrics ask for time, for understanding, for space to work through difficulties. On the surface, it sounds like a reasonable request from someone trying to make a relationship work. Erin Everly was the daughter of Don Everly from the Everly Brothers. She had also inspired Sweet Child O' Mine. Rose seemed genuinely in love with her, but their relationship was marked by volatility. In 1990, Rose and Everly got married in Las Vegas. The marriage lasted less than a month before Everly filed for divorce. The legal proceedings revealed allegations of physical and emotional abuse. Everly claimed Rose threatened her, hit her, and once dragged her by her hair. Patience, when viewed through this lens, takes on a more troubling meaning. The song that sounded like a gentle plea becomes something else when you know what came after. It becomes a song about a man asking for forgiveness and more chances in a relationship that was already unhealthy. The song remains popular, still played on classic rock stations, but for those who know the story, Patience carries an uncomfortable undercurrent. Number 3, Tainted Love by Soft Cell.
Tainted love, tainted love.
Soft Cell's version of Tainted Love became one of the defining songs of the 1980s when it was released in 1981. The synthesizer-driven track spent 43 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. Its driving beat made it a nightclub staple. The song was actually a cover. Gloria Jones had recorded the original in 1964, but Soft Cell's Mark Almond and David Ball transformed it completely, turning it into something darker and more desperate.
Tainted love. Tainted love.
Almond's life at the time fed into his interpretation. He was living in Leeds, England, working in a sex shop and performing in nightclubs. He was openly gay at a time when that came with significant social stigma. He witnessed the darker side of relationships, the transactions masquerading as affection, the loneliness that drove people into destructive situations. When Almond sang about tainted love, he wasn't just singing about a bad relationship. He was singing about love that had been corrupted, poisoned. The line about running away from this love carried genuine desperation.
Tainted love. Now I know.
Almond later spoke about his struggles with addiction and dangerous relationships. The song that made him famous captured something real about the kind of love that destroys rather than builds. Soft Cell never had another hit as successful. They broke up in 1984. The song remains a classic, but it's worth remembering where it came from. It came from someone who understood what it meant to be in love with something or someone who was slowly destroying you.
Tainted love. Tainted love.
Number 2. True by Spandau Ballet. Spandau Ballet released True in April 1983, and it became their biggest international hit. The smooth, sophisticated sound made it a favorite at weddings and romantic events. But the song's writer, Gary Kemp, had drawn inspiration from something bittersweet rather than triumphant. Kemp wrote True about an unrequited crush he had on Claire Grogan, the lead singer of Altered Images.
Listening to my band all night long.
Kemp met Grogan in Negentian Ainantochtic on the BBC music show Top of the Pops. He already had a girlfriend at the time, but he felt an instant connection with Grogan. They bonded over conversations about writers, and she gave him a copy of Vladimir Nabokov's novel Lolita for his birthday. Kemp intended to keep the friendship platonic, but he found himself infatuated. He traveled all the way to Scotland to have tea with Claire and her parents. The feelings were unrequited. Grogan was already being pursued by actor John Gordon Sinclair, who had starred with her in the film Gregory's Girl, and by artist David Band. The relationship never went beyond friendship, but it was enough to inspire Kemp to write. When he wrote True, he was trying to capture the difficulty of expressing feelings for someone when you aren't sure those feelings are returned. The song became less about Grogan specifically and more about the challenge of writing an honest love song when you're afraid of seeming foolish. The smooth, sophisticated production that leaned heavily on jazz and soul influences sent the song to number 1 in the UK and to the top 5 in the United States. Kemp later admitted the song's true origins in interviews. He had taken a moment of unrequited longing and uncertainty and transformed it into something that sounded like confident romantic devotion, even though the reality was far more hesitant. Number 1. Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson released Billie Jean in January 1983, and it became one of the biggest hits of his career. The song spent 7 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The iconic bass line, Jackson's vocal performance, and that famous music video made it an instant classic. Most people assumed the song was fiction, just another pop story, but Jackson revealed in his autobiography that Billie Jean was based on real experiences, and those experiences were deeply disturbing. Jackson explained that he and his brothers had dealt with multiple women, claiming that one of them had fathered their children. These weren't casual accusations. Some of the women were persistent, showing up at concerts and the family home. One woman in particular stood out. She sent letters to Jackson claiming that he was the father of one of her twins. She included photos of the babies. She wrote about how she and Jackson were in love, describing encounters that had never happened. The letters became increasingly disturbing. Jackson's family had to take security precautions. The woman knew where they lived, where they performed. She seemed to believe her own story completely, creating an entire narrative about a relationship that existed only in her mind. The situation terrified Jackson. He was young, famous, and vulnerable. The woman's persistence made him feel hunted. When he wrote Billie Jean, he channeled all of that fear and frustration into the music. The paranoid bass line, the defensive lyrics, the sense of being trapped all came from real experience. Quincy Jones, who produced the track, later said that Jackson was adamant about getting the song exactly right. He knew it captured something real about his life that he needed to express. Billie Jean wasn't a happy song disguised as an upbeat dance track. It was a man describing what it felt like to be stalked, to have someone create a false reality and force him to live inside it. The 1980s gave us incredible music, songs that still sound fresh decades later. But behind many of those hits were real struggles, real pain, and real darkness. The artists who created these songs took their most difficult experiences and transformed them into something people could connect with, dance to, and remember forever. If you enjoyed learning about the true stories behind these classic songs, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more music history. What other 1980s songs would you like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below.